behind the golden gates of Buckingham Palace, whispers travel faster than royal carriages. In the shadowed corridors where history breathes through ancient tapestries, palace staff exchange knowing glances and speak in hushed tones about something extraordinary brewing for 26. The subtle increase in private meetings between senior courtiers, the mysterious scheduling blocks appearing in the Prince and Princess of Wales diaries, and the unusual requests for historical precedent research have set the rumour mill spinning at unprecedented speed. What honour could be so significant that even the most seasoned palace insiders speak of it only in coded conversations? What tradition, dormant for decades, might be awakening to reshape the very fabric of the modern monarchy? As speculation reaches fever pitch across Britain and beyond, one thing becomes crystal clear. The royal family is preparing for something that will mark 2026 as a defining year in the House of Windsor's storied legacy. The morning mist clung to the manicured gardens of Windsor Castle as Lady Catherine Pemberton, the Queen's longest-serving lady-in-waiting, hurried through the East Terrace garden with an urgency that belied her 72 years. Her sensible shoes clicked against the wet stone pathway as she clutched a leather portfolio against her chest, its contents known only to the highest echelons of the royal household. The September air carried the scent of late-blooming roses, but Catherine's mind was far from the beauty surrounding her. Inside the Oak Room, a space typically reserved for the most confidential royal meetings, an unprecedented gathering was taking place. The Lord Chamberlain, Sir Andrew Parker, sat at the head of an oval mahogany table that had witnessed countless historic decisions. To his right, the private secretary to the Prince of Wales, Jonathan Thompson, reviewed documents that bore the distinctive watermark of the royal household. Across from him, Sarah Williams, the Princess of Wales' private secretary, maintained the composed demeanour that had made her indispensable to the royal family. The room itself seemed to hold its breath as these key figures contemplated what many were calling the most significant royal decision in a generation. Heavy burgundy curtains filtered the morning light, casting long shadows across oil paintings of monarchs past who had faced their own moments of historic consequence. The very walls seemed to whisper of tradition, duty, and the weight of centuries-old customs that continued to shape the modern monarchy. Sir Andrew cleared his throat and opened the meeting with words that would later be remembered as the beginning of a new chapter in royal history. The documentation before them detailed a plan that had been months in the making, involving consultations with constitutional experts, historians, and senior members of Parliament. What they were proposing would not only honour the Prince and Princess of Wales, but would also signal a new era of royal engagement with the British people and the Commonwealth realms. The proposal centred around the revival of an ancient honour that had not been bestowed in over 2 centuries. The title of Prince Regent and Princess Consort Regent, historically granted during times when the monarch required additional support in governing, was being considered for William and Catherine. However, this modern interpretation would serve a different purpose entirely. Rather than indicating any decline in the current monarch's capacity, it would represent a formal recognition of the couple's expanding role as the future of the monarchy and their readiness to assume greater responsibilities. Lady Catherine finally entered the room, her arrival marking the transition from preliminary discussions to serious planning. She placed the portfolio on the table with reverence, knowing it contained research spanning back to the Georgian era when such titles were last considered. The documents revealed fascinating parallels between the current royal situation and historical precedents that could justify such an unprecedented move. The research revealed that the modern Prince and Princess of Wales had already undertaken responsibilities that far exceeded those of previous generations in their position. Their extensive charity work, diplomatic missions, and public engagements had positioned them as the most visible and active members of the royal family after the monarch. The proposed honour would formalise what had already become an informal reality, their status as the working heart of the contemporary monarchy. Thompson explained how the prince had been increasingly involved in state functions traditionally reserved for the monarch. His meetings with heads of state, his role in the Privy Council, and his expanding influence in Commonwealth affairs had already begun to blur the traditional lines of royal hierarchy. The princess, meanwhile, had emerged as a powerful advocate for causes ranging from early childhood development to mental health awareness, commanding respect and attention that rivaled even the most established members of the royal family. The conversation turned to the practical implications of such an honour. Unlike traditional royal titles that were largely ceremonial, the proposed regent designations would come with specific duties and powers. The Prince Regent would be granted expanded authority in matters of state, including the ability to represent the Crown in certain diplomatic capacities without requiring explicit permission for each engagement. The Princess Consort Regent would be given formal recognition of her charitable and social work, with the resources and authority to launch major initiatives in her own right. Sarah Williams raised concerns about public reception, noting that any new royal honours would face scrutiny in an era where the monarchy's relevance was constantly questioned. However, early polling data suggested that the British public held the Prince and Princess of Wales in higher regard than any royal couple since the early years of Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip's marriage. Their combination of traditional royal dignity with modern accessibility had won them support across demographic lines that typically showed little interest in the monarchy. The international implications were equally significant. Commonwealth leaders had already begun treating the prince as a de facto deputy monarch during recent royal tours. The formal recognition of this role would provide clarity and legitimacy to relationships that had been developing organically. Several Commonwealth prime ministers had privately indicated their support for expanded roles for the prince and princess, viewing them as vital bridges between tradition and the modern democratic values of their nations. The meeting delved into the historical research that would justify such an unprecedented move. The last Prince Regent, the future King George IV, had held the title due to his father's mental illness, a circumstance that obviously did not apply to the current situation. However, precedents existed for regency appointments based on the monarch's desire to ensure smooth succession and effective governance. The proposal would position the 2026 honour not as an emergency measure, but as a forward-thinking modernization of royal structure. As the discussion progressed, the scope of the planning became clear. The announcement would be timed to coincide with significant royal milestones in 2026, including the 25th wedding anniversary of the current monarch and major Commonwealth celebrations. The timing would emphasize continuity and celebration rather than any sense of transition or decline. Every detail, from the announcement venue to the ceremonial elements, was being carefully orchestrated to reinforce the positive nature of this historic development. The administrative challenges were substantial but manageable. New protocols would need to be established for the expanded roles, staff structures would require adjustment, and constitutional lawyers were already working on the precise language that would define the new positions. The palace was determined that every legal and ceremonial detail would be perfect, knowing that any perceived irregularity could undermine the entire initiative. Lady Catherine shared insights from her historical research, revealing that similar honours had been considered multiple times throughout the 20th century, but had never been implemented due to various political and personal considerations. The current proposal represented the culmination of decades of constitutional evolution and represented a natural progression rather than a revolutionary change. The monarchy had been gradually adapting to modern expectations, and this honour would simply formalize changes that had already taken place in practice. The security implications were also being carefully considered. The expanded roles would require enhanced protection protocols and coordination with various government departments. However, the prince and princess had already been operating at near monarchical security levels for several years, so the practical changes would be minimal. The symbolic significance would far outweigh the operational adjustments required. As the meeting concluded, each participant understood the magnitude of what they were planning. The revival of ancient honours for modern purposes would be seen as either a masterstroke of royal evolution or a controversial departure from tradition, depending on how successfully the palace managed the announcement and implementation. The careful planning evident in every aspect of their discussion suggested that nothing was being left to chance. The participants agreed on absolute secrecy until the formal announcement, understanding that premature leaks could jeopardize the entire initiative. However, they also recognized that the extensive preparations required would inevitably generate speculation and rumors. The challenge would be managing that speculation while maintaining the element of surprise that would maximize the positive impact of the announcement. The meeting ended with assignments for each participant, ranging from continued constitutional research to preliminary discussions with key political figures. The next few months would be crucial in determining whether this ambitious plan would achieve its goals of modernizing the monarchy while honoring its deepest traditions. As they filed out of the Oak Room, each carried with them the weight of participating in what could become one of the most significant royal developments of the modern era. The autumn leaves danced across the courtyard of Clarence House as Prince William stood before the tall windows of his private study, watching the organized chaos of London traffic below. His reflection in the glass showed a man who had aged gracefully into his role, bearing the confident posture of someone comfortable with immense responsibility. Behind him, spread across an antique desk that had once belonged to his great-grandmother, lay documents that would have seemed impossible just a generation earlier. Catherine entered the room with the quiet grace that had become her trademark, carrying a tea service that she set down with practiced ease. The simple domestic ritual provided a moment of normalcy in what had become an extraordinarily complex period of their lives. They had been briefed extensively about the proposed honours, and both understood that their response would shape not only their own futures, but the trajectory of the monarchy itself. The couple had spent weeks in careful consideration, consulting not only with palace advisors, but also with trusted friends outside the royal circle. Catherine had reached out to mentors from her pre-royal life, seeking perspectives from people who understood her journey from commoner to future queen. William had engaged in long conversations with former military colleagues and childhood friends, testing their reactions to the unprecedented nature of what was being proposed. Their children had been a primary consideration in their deliberations. Prince George, already showing signs of understanding his future role, had asked thoughtful questions about what additional responsibilities might mean for their family life. Princess Charlotte, with her characteristic directness, had simply asked if the new titles would mean more traveling, while Prince Louis remained blissfully unaware of the significance of the adult conversations swirling around him. The couple's private discussions had revealed both excitement and apprehension about the proposed honors. William had initially worried about the perception that he was somehow impatient for greater authority, a concern that Catherine had helped him work through by pointing out the natural evolution of his role over the past decade. She had her own concerns about the increased scrutiny that would inevitably accompany more formal recognition of her position within the royal hierarchy. Their relationship with the current monarch had been crucial in their decision-making process. The king had made clear that the proposed honors represented his complete confidence in their abilities and his desire to ensure the smoothest possible transition of responsibilities over time. Rather than feeling pressured, William and Catherine had come to understand the proposal as an expression of trust and recognition of their proven capabilities. The international dimensions of their expanded roles had required careful consideration. Both had experience with diplomatic missions, but the formal authority that would come with regent status would place them in unprecedented positions. Catherine had been particularly thoughtful about how her role might evolve, recognizing that she would become the most powerful princess consort in modern royal history, with responsibilities that extended far beyond traditional ceremonial duties. Their decision to accept the honors had not come lightly. William had insisted on guarantees that the new roles would not interfere with their commitment to hands-on parenting, a priority that had defined their approach to royal life from the beginning. Catherine had sought assurances that her charitable work would be enhanced rather than constrained by additional formal duties. Both had required detailed explanations of how the honors would be structured to complement rather than compete with the current monarch's authority. The practical implications had been extensively discussed with palace staff. Their private secretaries had worked tirelessly to understand how daily schedules would change, how travel requirements might increase, and how the additional responsibilities could be integrated with existing commitments. The couple had been impressed by the thorough planning that addressed everything from security protocols to staff expansion. Meanwhile, speculation in the British media had reached fever pitch. Royal correspondents had noticed subtle changes in the couple's scheduling patterns and had begun connecting dots that pointed towards something significant in development. The most observant reporters had noted the increase in meetings with constitutional experts and the unusual number of private audiences with senior political figures. The speculation had taken various forms, ranging from accurate guesses about expanded roles to wild theories about abdication or dramatic changes in the line of succession. The palace's policy of never commenting on speculation had only intensified the rumor mill, with each denied story seeming to confirm that something major was indeed being planned. The challenge for royal communications staff was managing the speculation without revealing the true nature of the developing story. Social media had amplified the speculation exponentially. Royal fans from around the world had begun analyzing every public appearance for clues, dissecting photographs for evidence of new protocols or changes in behavior. The global interest had surprised even seasoned palace observers, revealing the extent to which William and Catherine had captured international attention and affection. The couple had been carefully briefed on managing the speculation period. They had been advised to maintain normal public schedules while being prepared for increased scrutiny of their every word and gesture. The challenge was appearing natural and relaxed while knowing that millions of people were searching for clues about their future roles. Both had handled the pressure with characteristic dignity, neither confirming nor denying the swirling rumors. Their public engagements during this period had taken on additional significance. Every speech was analyzed for hints about expanded responsibilities. Every charitable visit was scrutinized for evidence of new priorities. The couple had risen to the occasion, delivering performances that reinforced their readiness for greater roles, while maintaining appropriate discretion about future plans. The Commonwealth dimension had added complexity to the speculation. Royal tours planned for 2022 had been announced with unusual fanfare, leading to theories about farewell tours or preparation for expanded roles. The reality was somewhere between these extremes, as the tours were indeed designed to strengthen relationships that would become even more important once the formal honors were announced. Political circles had been buzzing with their own theories and concerns. Some politicians had been quietly briefed about potential developments, while others had been left to speculate along with the general public. The challenge for the palace was maintaining necessary confidentiality, while ensuring that key political figures would not be blindsided by major announcements affecting constitutional arrangements. The economic implications had also been carefully considered. The expanded roles would require additional funding, but economic advisors had determined that the increased diplomatic and charitable activities would more than justify the investment. The couple's ability to attract international attention and investment to British causes had been thoroughly documented and factored into planning decisions. Catherine had spent considerable time preparing for the unique aspects of her proposed role. Unlike previous princess consorts, who had largely filled supportive positions, she would be granted independent authority to launch major initiatives and represent the crown in her own right. The historical research had revealed no exact precedents for such a position, making her preparation both exciting and challenging. The couple's extended families had been gradually brought into confidence about the developing situation. Both sides had responded with support and pride, though also with some concern about the additional pressures that would inevitably accompany such prominent roles. The balance between public duty and private family life had been a constant consideration throughout their discussions. Religious leaders had been quietly consulted about the spiritual dimensions of the proposed honours. The Church of England's support had been secured early in the process, but broader religious communities had also been engaged to ensure that the honours would be seen as compatible with Britain's diverse faith traditions. The couple's own faith had been an important factor in their decision-making process. As the final preparations moved forward, both William and Catherine had found themselves reflecting on the journey that had brought them to this point. From their university meeting through their fairy tale wedding, to their emergence as the most popular members of the royal family, their path had been remarkable by any measure. The proposed honours would represent not just recognition of their current contributions, but investment in their potential to lead the monarchy into a new era. The weight of history had been present in all their considerations. They understood that accepting these honours would place them in a unique position within the long story of the British monarchy. The responsibility was enormous, but both had come to believe that they were ready for the challenge, and that the timing was right for such a significant step forward. The state dining room at Buckingham Palace had hosted countless historic moments, but few occasions had carried the weight of anticipation that filled the gilded chamber on this crisp December morning. Sunlight streamed through the tall windows, illuminating the crystal chandeliers that cast rainbow patterns across the cream and gold walls. The room had been arranged with meticulous attention to detail, every element designed to convey the magnitude of the announcement that would reshape the British monarchy. Senior members of the government had arrived early, their formal attire reflecting the ceremonial importance of the occasion. The Prime Minister sat in quiet conversation with the Archbishop of Canterbury, both men understanding their roles as witnesses to constitutional history. Ambassadors from Commonwealth nations filled the front rows, their presence emphasizing the international significance of the day's events. The careful selection of attendees had been months in the planning, ensuring that every constituency with a stake in the monarchy's future would be represented. The media presence was unprecedented, with royal correspondents from around the world positioned to capture every moment. Camera crews had been setting up since dawn, their equipment representing billions of viewers who would witness the announcement within hours of its delivery. The palace communications team had worked tirelessly to manage the logistics while maintaining the secrecy that had made this moment possible. Even the most experienced reporters admitted to feeling nervous about what they were about to witness. At precisely 11 o'clock, the massive doors opened to admit the royal family. The current monarch led the procession with the dignity that had defined a lifetime of service, followed by Prince William and Princess Catherine walking side by side with confident grace. Their children remained at home, but their presence was felt in the knowledge that this day would significantly shape their futures as well. The couple's composure masked the excitement and nervousness they had confessed to close friends in the days leading up to this moment. The king stepped to the ornate podium that had been placed at the center of the room, its position symbolically emphasizing the unity between tradition and innovation that the announcement represented. The silence that fell over the assembled crowd was profound, broken only by the distant sounds of London traffic and the subtle clicking of camera shutters. Everyone present understood that they were witnessing a moment that would be remembered and analyzed for generations to come. The monarch's voice carried clearly through the room as the historic announcement began. The careful phrasing had been refined through countless drafts, each word chosen for its constitutional precision and emotional resonance. The revival of ancient honours for modern purposes was explained with references to both historical precedent and contemporary needs. The king's obvious pride in the Prince and Princess of Wales was evident in every carefully measured phrase. The formal bestowing of the titles of Prince Regent and Princess Consort Regent represented more than ceremonial recognition. The king explained how these roles would enable William and Catherine to take on expanded responsibilities while providing continuity and stability for the monarchy's future. The announcement detailed specific new powers and duties, from enhanced diplomatic authority to expanded charitable mandates, painting a picture of a monarchy adapting to meet 21st-century challenges. William stepped forward to accept the honor with words that had been crafted to acknowledge both the weight of responsibility and his readiness to embrace it. His speech referenced the lessons learned from years of royal service and expressed determination to justify the confidence being placed in him. The blend of humility and authority in his delivery impressed even skeptical observers who had questioned whether he was ready for such significant additional responsibilities. Catherine's acceptance was equally compelling, her remarks focusing on the opportunity to expand her charitable work and represent the crown in new capacities. She spoke movingly about the trust placed in her as someone who had not been born into royal life, but had embraced its demands and opportunities. Her words resonated particularly strongly with viewers who had followed her remarkable journey from commoner to princess to future regent. The immediate reaction in the room was one of respectful approval, with sustained applause that reflected both appreciation for the couple and recognition of the historic nature of the moment. The international representatives seemed particularly pleased, many having worked closely with William and Catherine during recent royal tours and diplomatic missions. Their positive response suggested that the enhanced roles would be well received across the Commonwealth and beyond. The questions from assembled reporters revealed the intense interest in practical details about how the new roles would function. Palace officials had prepared extensively for these inquiries, providing clear explanations of how the regent positions would complement rather than compete with existing royal hierarchies. The constitutional arrangements had been carefully crafted to avoid any confusion about authority while maximizing the couple's ability to serve effectively in their expanded capacities. The media coverage that followed was overwhelmingly positive, with commentators praising both the innovation of reviving ancient titles and the obvious suitability of William and Catherine for their enhanced roles. International coverage was equally favorable, with particular emphasis on how the couple had already been functioning as quasi-regents during recent diplomatic missions. The global fascination with their story had translated into worldwide celebration of their formal recognition. Social media exploded with reactions ranging from excitement about the historic nature of the announcement to analysis of what the new roles might mean for the monarchy's future. Royal fans around the world shared their delight at seeing their favorite royal couple receive recognition that many felt was long overdue. The hashtags related to the announcement trended globally within hours, demonstrating the international appetite for positive royal news. The weeks following the announcement saw a carefully orchestrated rollout of information about how the new roles would function in practice. The couple began appearing at events with modified protocols that reflected their enhanced status, while maintaining the accessibility that had made them so popular. Their first official appearances as Prince Regent and Princess Consort Regent were met with enthusiasm from crowds who seemed genuinely excited about this evolution in royal structure. The impact on charitable organizations associated with the couple was immediate and significant. Applications for royal patronage increased dramatically, and existing charities reported surges in both donations and volunteer applications. Catherine's enhanced status as Princess Consort Regent had legitimized her philanthropic work in ways that opened new possibilities for major initiatives, addressing issues from mental health to early childhood development. International diplomatic circles welcomed the clarification that the regent titles provided for the couple's expanded roles. Several heads of state who had been scheduled to meet with William in his capacity as heir to the throne instead found themselves dealing with someone who now held formal authority to make commitments on behalf of the crown. The enhanced status streamlined diplomatic processes and eliminated ambiguity about the couple's authority to represent British interests abroad. The constitutional scholars who had initially expressed concerns about the unprecedented nature of the arrangement found their fears largely unfounded, as the new system began operating smoothly. The careful legal framework that had been developed proved robust enough to handle the complexities of enhanced royal roles while maintaining traditional constitutional balances. The success of the implementation validated the extensive planning that had preceded the announcement. Commonwealth leaders responded with particular enthusiasm to the new arrangements, viewing the regent titles as recognition of the couple's already significant role in maintaining relationships between Britain and former colonies. The enhanced status provided additional gravitas for royal tours and diplomatic missions while acknowledging the couple's proven effectiveness as ambassadors for British values and interests. The British public's response continued to be overwhelmingly positive as the implications of the new roles became clearer. Polling showed strong support for the decision across party lines, with particular enthusiasm among younger voters who saw William and Catherine as representing a modern, accessible face of monarchy. The couple's approval ratings, already high, reached new peaks as people appreciated both their expanded responsibilities and their graceful handling of increased scrutiny. As 2026 progressed, the success of the Regent experiment became undeniable. The couple had seamlessly integrated their enhanced roles into existing royal structures, while maintaining the personal touch that had made them so beloved. Their children adapted well to their parents' increased prominence, continuing to attend school and participate in normal childhood activities while understanding their family's unique position in national life. The legacy of this historic decision was already becoming apparent by year's end. The monarchy had successfully adapted ancient traditions to modern needs, creating a model that other constitutional monarchies began studying for their own potential reforms. William and Catherine had proven themselves worthy of the trust placed in them, justifying the unprecedented decision to revive regent titles for the 21st century. The transformation had been complete but gradual, allowing both the couple and the nation to adjust to their enhanced roles without disruption to the broader constitutional framework. The success of the 2026 honours would be remembered as a turning point when the British monarchy demonstrated its continued relevance and adaptability, while William and Catherine established themselves as the bridge between royal tradition and modern expectations. Their reign as regents had begun with promise and delivered on every expectation, setting the stage for a future where ancient institutions could thrive in contemporary society.